Here is my presentation on identifying equivalent web services. First, you might ask, what is a web service? Well, a web service is a software used to communicate between two devices on a network. We use web services every day. Your phone's weather app, GPS apps, even messenger apps are all things that can be provided with web services. Instead of coding a GPS or weather functionality on their own, consumers can choose to employ a web service to perform this functionality instead. Since that's so important, consumers looking for these services might want to find services that fit all their requirements and choose the optimal ones among all of them. So if you can see below, Google Maps has a direction API, and which is a web service, and Apple just bought Dark Sky API, which is a weather service. Our goals were to find the best way to identify equivalent web services, and then a secondary goal was to use such services to improve QoS, which is quality of service. These can be things like latency or failure rate. Why? Well, if we have a parent web service, they can hypothetically utilize two smaller web services. If these two web services are similar, you can alternate between the two when one's, for instance, when one is being slower than the other, you can switch to the faster one, and then that will raise the QoS standards of the parent. You can see on the right, we have two graphs here, and you can see that good latency for an API is around 200. You can see that from the data I've gathered, not a lot follow that. And you can see here, service level, a good service level is around 90%. And you can also see not a lot of APIs follow that one as well. The majority of them are in no data. In our previous and related works, we found that papers as recent as 2017 are basically outdated. They use, they mentioned UDDIs, which are repositories for web services. They haven't been around since 2005. Most use WSDL, which is a web service description language, which describes SOAP APIs, which is a messaging system, and those haven't been around. Those are basically long dead. Their methodologies for identifying the equivalent services are viable, but it's just on outdated services. An extremely common method we found was clustering related services based on keywords in their descriptions, documents, their tags using machine learning. Term frequency, inverse document frequency, and latent Dirichlet allocation are the two that we found most common. So first, we needed to get a data set together since all of them are outdated. We used web crawling to accomplish this means, which is basically indexing data on web pages using a program or script. I used Python to do this, and I crawled 5,911 APIs off of Rapid API. We gathered data on their name, URL, description, their category, their QoS characteristics, their service level agreements, even their specification documents. So we used that to make a web service clustering and recommendation model. With this data set, we used topic modeling in order to cluster together similar keywords from the API descriptions, method names, and method descriptions into 100 topics that would describe an API. Each API is identified as a combination of topics based on their keywords, their methods, and their method descriptions. A user can then query this system to get a bunch of recommended APIs based on their query. As you can see here, we search facial recognition, and you get a bunch of recommended APIs based on facial recognition. If in case you're wondering how the recommendation works, each API is stored as a unique vector of its topic and the weight relevant to that topic. So you see A1 has T1, and then that's 0.05 weight, T2 has a 0.2 weight, so on and so forth to T100. Each API can be plotted as a point in an n-dimensional matrix where n is the number of topics and each dimension corresponds to a topic. So like it's basically plotted on a graph like here. And we use cosine similarity, which is basically, if we were to turn this into a vector, we would measure the angles between these vectors, and the more close those angles are, the more related these APIs are together. And so you can see here in the corner, like a visualization, France and Italy have a close angle, while ball, and I think it's crocodile, have a very far angle. That's how the relationship is kind of identified. Plans for the future. Basically, this method isn't perfect. In the example I showed you earlier, we had these two APIs right here, face recognition and face detection. You can see that they had the same inputs of URLs, but they outputted different things. So here it outputs a gender and an age. Well, here it outputs a region of probability that it could be a face. So this basically you get stuff that is similar, but you're going to get APIs that can be completely technically different. They show you different things, they output different things. And so this can be improved by dynamically executing these services and comparing their outputs to one another to find truly equivalent services. This is why we chose Rapid API, because we can easily execute them for the future. And that's the focus of our research actually going into the future as well. Any questions, feel free to email me at my Michigan email or my professor at his email as well. We are looking for more undergraduate students for this research. And if you want to go to the GitHub, where my recommendation system and my web crawling code is, it is right here. And that is all.